Today, we're diving into something called the copycat connection trick. It's a fascinating and honestly a kind of scary psychological technique that shows how emotional mirroring can be used to build an instant and often completely unearned sense of trust. You finally meet someone who just gets you. But is that instant connection real, or is it a performance? This is the dark psychological paradox of emotional mirroring, a hidden language that builds instantaneous trust by making you think someone is just like you. You know that feeling, that immediate, almost magical click. But what if that magic isn't magic at all? What if it's just a well-rehearsed illusion designed to get past your defenses? So that's the big question, right? How do we possibly tell the difference between a real, genuine connection and a performance that's just designed to disarm us? Well, that's exactly what we're going to investigate. The answer is hiding in a powerful and sometimes really deceptive psychological tool that works just below the surface of our conscious thoughts. Here's how we're going to break it all down. We'll start with that instant connection paradox. Then we'll get a solid definition of emotional mirroring and look at the brain science that makes it work so well. We'll get into the psychology of it, and most importantly, we'll cover exactly how to break the spell. And finally, we'll wrap up with the crucial difference between trust that's earned and trust that's just manufactured. Okay, so first things first, let's get a really clear foundation. What exactly is emotional mirroring? You have to understand the definition before you can spot it in the wild, whether it's happening for you or, well, to you. At its most basic level, emotional mirroring is when we subconsciously copy another person's nonverbal signals. And this is a huge spectrum of behaviors. It can be super subtle, like matching someone's breathing rate, or pretty obvious, like adopting their posture. You know, they lean in, you lean in. It also covers things like vocal tone and the rhythm of their speech. Now, in a healthy, normal context, this is actually a beautiful part of how we bond. It's how we build rapport and show empathy without even saying a word. It just happens automatically when we genuinely connect with someone. It's like a silent signal that says, hey, I'm with you. We're on the same page. And this is where we see the two faces of this tool. On one side, you've got healthy rapport. It's totally natural, subconscious. It's just a side effect of a real connection forming. It's the glue that holds our social bonds together. But on the other side, it can be a tool for calculated manipulation. And in this case, the mirroring is intentional. It's strategic. The goal isn't to connect, it's to create the powerful illusion of a connection, all for some kind of personal gain. It basically turns a natural social tool into a weapon of influence. So here's the bottom line. When mirroring is used as a deliberate tactic, the goal is to short-circuit your natural defenses, your gut feelings. A manipulator knows that we're all biologically wired to trust people who seem like us. So by creating this perfect reflection of you, they're trying to gain unearned trust and, maybe more importantly, unearned access. Access to your vulnerability, your private information, your money, your loyalty, all without doing any of the actual work of building a real relationship. So now that we know what it is, let's get into how it works on a neurological level. How can something as simple as copying someone's posture have such a massive and immediate effect on how much we trust them? The power behind this whole thing isn't magic, it's biology. It works by exploiting the very wiring in your brain that's supposed to help you bond with people and survive. It's called unconscious rapport building, and it leverages a special set of brain cells to create this feeling of a deep connection, even when there isn't one. To really understand the trick, we have to understand the system it hijacks. So let's break that process down. Okay, so this lays out the whole cycle of exploitation. It kicks off with step 1, unconscious synchronization. The manipulator subtly starts mimicking you, your posture, your gestures, maybe the way you tilt your head. It happens just below your conscious radar, so you don't notice it, but your subconscious brain absolutely does. And that triggers step 2, mirror neuron activation. See, your brain has these special cells called mirror neurons. They're incredible. They fire both when you do something and when you see someone else do that same thing. It's basically the neural hardware for empathy. So when someone mirrors you, these neurons fire up and your brain interprets that on a deep, primal level as, this person is like me, we're the same. This releases a flood of positive social chemicals, making you feel empathy and comfort. And that leads right to step 3, rapport exploitation. Now that you're feeling all warm and fuzzy, your critical thinking skills take a nosedive. You start trusting them without question, maybe sharing things you normally wouldn't. And that brings us to the most dangerous step, premature intimacy. You basically grant them a level of closeness and trust that should take weeks, months, or even years to build. You've handed over the keys to the castle before you even know who they are. And this right here, This is the critical error the brain makes. This is the heart of the deception. The target, the person being mirrored, mistakes that powerful, chemically induced feeling of connection for the fact of a real, shared experience. The manipulator hasn't actually built a bridge to you. They've just held up a perfect mirror, and your brain basically falls in love with its own reflection. The feeling is absolutely real, but where it comes from is completely manufactured. So now that we've got the neurological how, let's dig into the psychological why. What makes a manipulator use this trick? And, maybe more importantly, what is it about us? What deep human needs make us so vulnerable to it? You can really think of this as a tale of two needs that just happen to fit together like a lock and a key. For the manipulator, the goal is what you could call psychological efficiency, getting the most reward for the least amount of emotional work. They're after unearned trust and something psychologists call narcissistic supply, basically a constant stream of attention and admiration to fuel their ego. And on the other side, you have the target, who has a deep, universal human need, the need for validation. We all desperately want to feel seen, to feel heard, and to feel understood. The manipulator offers what feels like an instant fix for that fundamental need. Let's talk a bit more about that psychological efficiency idea. Building a real, trusting relationship takes time. It takes effort, mutual respect, and actual, real vulnerability from both sides. It's hard work. For a manipulator, mirroring is the ultimate shortcut. It's like printing counterfeit money. It creates the look of connection and gets them access to your trust and vulnerability, but they don't have to offer any of their own in return. It's all about getting control without commitment and intimacy without investment. And for the person on the receiving end, the experience is just incredibly seductive. When someone mirrors us well, our brain gets this powerful emotional reward. It feels like validation in its purest form. It's a nonverbal signal that's screaming, "I see you, I get you, you're not alone." And that emotional high can be so intense that it makes us overlook all sorts of other things, like maybe the fact that their words are actually pretty shallow. We end up trusting the feeling more than the facts, which just reinforces this false idea that we found something uniquely special. All right, we've analyzed the trick from every angle. Now we get to the most important part of this whole thing, empowerment. How do you actually recognize this is happening in real time, and what can you do to break the spell? The key to defending yourself against this is actually based on one simple, powerful idea. You have to interrupt the unconscious process by making it conscious. The whole trick depends on you not knowing what's happening. The second you become a conscious observer of the dynamic, the spell starts to break. You take back control, just by paying attention. Here's your first and most direct counter tactic, the observation test. The next time you feel that too good to be true instant click with someone new, don't just get swept away by it. First, just acknowledge the feeling to yourself. Make a mental note. Then, step 2, subtly and naturally change your body language. If your arms are open, just gently cross them. If you're leaning in, lean back a bit. Then, step 3 is the most important. Just watch. Do they unconsciously copy you within a few seconds? See? Someone building real rapport is focused on the conversation, not your exact physical position. But a calculated manipulator is running a script, and they'll often make the change without even knowing they're doing it. It's a huge tell. The second defense is all about managing your own behavior. We'll call it pacing the vulnerability. Again, step 1 is just to acknowledge the feeling. Wow, I feel like I can really trust this person. But then, step 2, you have to consciously fight that powerful urge to immediately overshare all your personal details. Remember, that feeling is the result of the trick, not proof of real trust. So the rule for step 3 is simple but vital. Make your level of trust match their demonstrated reliability over time. Real trust is earned through consistent actions, not just a fleeting feeling of rapport. And finally, there's the verbal discrepancy check. This means you have to listen with a critical ear, not just feel with an open heart. Ask yourself these questions. Does their body language feel super intimate and connected, but their actual words are kind of generic or shallow? You know, they're leaning in, nodding, making you feel completely understood, but all they're really saying is, "Oh, that's wild," or "I totally get it." Is there a huge gap between the feeling of rapport and the actual substance of the conversation? That mismatch is a major red flag that the connection is being faked. So, we've explored the mechanism and the defense. What's the single most important lesson we can take away from all of this? Well, that brings us to a conclusion, to the core idea that protects us not just from this trick, but in all of our relationships. If there is one thing to remember from all this, it's this. True intimacy, real trust, genuine connection, it can't be rushed and it can't be faked. It has to be earned over time through shared experiences, consistent behavior, and proven reliability. That exciting instant click feeling isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it should be treated as a starting point for observation, not a finish line for trust. Think of it as a hypothesis that still needs data to be proven true. So, what's the final verdict? We've seen that emotional mirroring, when it's used to manipulate, is a copycat connection trick. It's a performance designed to build instant, unearned trust. We learned how the pattern works. That subtle, subconscious imitation triggers your brain's mirror neuron system, creating a powerful feeling of connection that makes you grant intimacy way too soon. But we also learned that awareness breaks the spell. By using simple tools like the observation test and by consciously pacing your vulnerability, you take back control. You make sure that the trust you give is always earned with time and action, never simply manufactured. And that leaves us with one final question to think about. As you go about your life, think about your relationships. Who in your life truly earned your trust through their character and their consistent actions? And who might have just manufactured it with a perfect reflection? The answer to that question is a powerful tool for understanding your own connections.